The day, everything changed. The morning sun cast long shadows across New Eden Colony's educational district, as children's laughter echoed through the pristine streets. Sarah Chen adjusted her teacher's badge and smiled at the sight of her students playing in the courtyard before classes began. At 8 years old, most of them had never known anything but peace on this frontier world. "Miss Chen! Miss Chen! Look what I found!" Tommy Rodriguez came running up, his small hands cupped around something precious. Inside was a tiny crystalline flower that grew only on their planet, its faceted petals catching the light like scattered rainbows. "That's beautiful, Tommy. Why don't you show it to the others during nature study?" Sarah ruffled his dark hair, noting how his eyes sparkled with innocent wonder. These children were the future of humanity's expansion into the stars, and she took that responsibility seriously. The colony had been established only 5 years ago, but already it thrived. Humans had a remarkable ability to adapt and build, turning this once barren world into something beautiful. The terraform engines hummed quietly in the distance, continuing their work of making the atmosphere more Earth-like with each passing day. What the colonists didn't know was that they were being watched. High above in the darkness of space, a fleet of Zarathi warships maintained their position just beyond the planet's sensor range. The Zarathi had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 1,000 years, and they viewed the human expansion as nothing more than an infestation to be eliminated. Warlord Kreshatar stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Blood Render, his 6 arms crossed as he studied the tactical displays. The humans had chosen poorly when they settled on Kepler 442c. This world held strategic importance as a gateway to 3 major hyperspace lanes, and the Zarathi hegemony would not tolerate alien presence here. "Status report," Kreshtar commanded, his voice a low rumble that made the bridge crew flinch. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with chitinous armor plating and predatory yellow eyes, he was the embodiment of Zarathi military might. "The colony population is approximately 50,000, Warlord," reported his tactical officer, Vex High. "Our intelligence indicates limited defensive capabilities, a few orbital platforms, some atmospheric fighters, and a small garrison of human soldiers." Kreshatar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "And their fleet presence?" "Minimal, a single destroyer and 3 corvettes. They appear to be focused on trade protection rather than military deterrence." The Warlord turned his attention to the planet below. Through the view screen, he could see the lights of human cities scattered across the night side of the world. Soon, those lights would be extinguished forever. "The humans have violated hegemony space," Kreshatar announced to his assembled commanders. "By ancient law, the penalty is complete eradication. We will make an example of this colony that will echo across their pathetic species for generations." His plan was elegant in its brutality. Rather than simply destroying the colony from orbit, which would be quick and merciful, the Zarathi would land forces and systematically eliminate the population. They would record everything and broadcast it across human communication networks, ensuring that humanity understood the price of trespassing in Zarathi territory. Back on the planet's surface, Captain Marcus Webb of the Colonial Defense Force was reviewing routine patrol reports when his communication officer burst into his office. "Sir, we're detecting massive hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system, multiple contacts, heavy tonnage." Webb's coffee mug hit the floor as he shot to his feet. "How many?" 67 vessels and counting, sir. The computer is classifying them as Zarathi design." The blood drained from Webb's face. The Zarathi hegemony was one of the most aggressive spacefaring civilizations humanity had encountered. They were known for their complete intolerance of other species in what they considered their territory. "Sound General Quarters. Get me a priority channel to Earth Command and activate all defensive systems." Webb's mind raced as he grabbed his sidearm and headed for the command center. "How long until they reach orbit?" "At current velocity, approximately 4 hours, sir." 4 hours. Webb knew it wasn't enough time to evacuate 50,000 people, even if they had the transport capacity. The colony had been built for growth and prosperity, not for a fighting retreat against overwhelming odds. As alarms began wailing across New Eden Colony, parents clutched their children closer and looked up at the sky with growing dread. The age of innocence was about to end in blood and fire. In her classroom, Sarah Chen was leading her students through their morning reading when the emergency broadcast interrupted their lesson. The children looked confused as the familiar voice of Governor Martinez filled the room. Citizens of New Eden Colony, we are currently facing a potential threat from hostile forces approaching our system. Please remain calm and follow the instructions of local authorities. All civilians should report to designated shelter areas immediately. Miss Chen, what's happening? Asked little Amy Foster, her lower lip trembling with fear. Sarah knelt down and gathered the children around her, forcing herself to smile even as her heart pounded. It's probably just a drill, sweethearts, but we're going to play a special game today. We're going to go to the safe room and see who can be the quietest for the longest time. As she led her 23 students toward the reinforced basement that served as the school's emergency shelter, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their world was about to change forever. Meanwhile, in the orbital defense stations, technicians worked frantically to bring all weapon systems online. The platforms had been designed to handle pirates and raiders, not a full Zarathi battle fleet. Captain Lisa Huang, commander of Defense Platform Alpha, watched her tactical displays with grim determination. Ma'am, incoming transmission from the Zarathi fleet, her communications officer reported. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the terrifying visage of Warlord Kreshatar. His yellow eyes seemed to burn with predatory hunger as he spoke. Humans of the illegal settlement designated Kepler 442c, you have violated sovereign hegemony space. By the ancient laws of our people, your presence here is an act of war. You have 1 hour to evacuate your pathetic colony before we commence cleansing operations. Captain Huang stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her gut. This is Captain Huang of the New Eden Defense Force. This system was unclaimed when we established our colony. We have committed no acts of aggression against your people. Kreshtar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Your laws are meaningless to us, human. This system belongs to the hegemony as it has for a millennium. Your ignorance is no excuse. We're willing to negotiate. There will be no negotiation. Evacuate or die. Those are your only options. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Down on the planet's surface, the evacuation had already begun, but it was a futile gesture. The colony's transport capacity could maybe move 5,000 people in an hour, leaving 45,000 to face whatever the Zarathi had planned. Governor Martinez stood in the colony's emergency command center, surrounded by maps and communication equipment. His advisors spoke in urgent whispers about evacuation priorities and defensive positions, but he knew the truth. They were all going to die. Sir, we've established contact with Earth Command, his chief of staff reported. The nearest fleet elements are 6 days away. 6 days. Martinez closed his eyes and thought about his wife and daughter, safely back on Earth. At least they would be spared what was coming. As the hour deadline approached, Captain Webb gathered his Defense Force personnel in the main briefing room. His soldiers, barely 300 men and women, looked back at him with a mixture of fear and determination. I won't lie to you, Webb began. The odds are against us. We're facing a force that outnumbers us more than 100 to 1, and they have technology we can't match. But this is our home, and these are our people. Every minute we buy is another chance for civilians to reach the shelters. Sergeant Major Thompson, a grizzled veteran of the border wars, stepped forward. Sir, what are our orders? Webb straightened his shoulders. We fight. We make them pay for every inch of ground, every life they take. We show these alien bastards what humans are capable of when you threaten our families. The assembled soldiers roared their approval, and Webb felt a surge of pride. They might die today, but they would die as warriors. As the Zarathi fleet entered orbit, their ships blotted out the sun over New Eden Colony. Kreshtar studied the human defensive positions with professional interest. The orbital platforms were already charging their weapons, and he could detect movement of military vehicles on the surface. "Impressive," he murmured. "They know they cannot win, yet they still prepare to fight. Perhaps there is some honor in this species after all, but honor would not save them." Kreshtar had his orders from the Hegemony Council, and he would carry them out to the letter. The humans would be made an example of. Their colony turned into a monument to Zarathi supremacy. "Begin orbital bombardment of military targets," he ordered. "Leave the civilian areas intact for now. I want them to watch their protectors die before we move to the second phase." The first energy beams lanced down from space, turning Defense Platform Alpha into an expanding ball of superheated gas. Captain Huang and her crew died instantly, their sacrifice buying the colony perhaps another few minutes of life. On the surface, Sarah Chen held her students close as the ground shook from the orbital strikes. Through the reinforced windows of their shelter, she could see the brilliant flashes of explosions lighting up the sky. "Miss Chen, I'm scared," whispered Tommy, still clutching his crystal flower. "I know, sweetheart," she replied, her voice steady despite her terror. "But remember, you're brave. You're all so very brave." As the Zarathi ships moved into their final attack positions, none of them noticed the small quantum beacon that had been activated in the governor's office. The signal raced across space at faster-than-light speeds, carrying a single desperate message. "Mayday! New Eden Colony under attack by Zarathi forces. 50,000 civilians in immediate danger. Request emergency assistance." The beacon's message reached its destination in less than 10 minutes, arriving at a coordinates that didn't appear on any public star charts. Deep in space, hidden within an asteroid field, something ancient and terrible began to stir. Humanity was about to reveal why they had survived every threat the galaxy had thrown at them. The children of New Eden Colony would be protected. And the Zarathi were about to learn that there are fates far worse than death. The Response Admiral Elena Vasquez was reviewing fleet deployment reports aboard the UES Retribution when her personal communication device chimed with the highest priority alert. The quantum beacon's message appeared on her screen, and her blood turned to ice as she read the details. New Eden Colony. 50,000 civilians. Children. The Zarathi had just made the greatest mistake in their species' history. Vasquez stood slowly from her desk, her scarred face hardening into an expression that had struck fear into pirates and enemy commanders across the galaxy. She had earned her reputation during the Centauri Uprising, where her tactical brilliance had saved 3 colonies from certain destruction. But this was different. This was personal. "Computer, activate Emergency Protocol 7, she commanded. "Emergency Protocol 7 requires authorization from Authorization Code Vasquez Alpha 77 Omega. Override all current mission parameters. This is a code black scenario." The computer paused for exactly 1.3 seconds before responding. "Emergency Protocol 7 activated, redirecting all available human military assets to respond to imminent civilian threat. Neural interface networks coming online." Across human space, sleeping giants began to awaken. The UES Retribution was not just a battleship, it was the command vessel for humanity's emergency response fleet. Hidden in dark corners of space, waiting for the one call that every human military officer prayed would never come, the call that meant human civilians, human children, were in mortal danger. As klaxons wailed throughout the massive ship, Admiral Vasquez made her way to the bridge. Her crew snapped to attention as she entered, their faces reflecting the same cold fury that burned in her eyes. "Status report," she demanded. "Ma'am, "We have confirmation of the beacon signal from New Eden Colony," reported Commander Sarah Mitchell, her tactical officer. "Zarathi fleet estimated at 67 vessels currently in orbit around Kepler 442c. Time to intercept? At maximum burn, 8 minutes. Vasquez nodded grimly. 8 minutes might as well be 8 hours when civilians were dying. But the emergency response fleet had been designed for exactly this scenario. "Activate the neural combat network. I want direct interface with all ships in the emergency fleet. And patch me through to General Morrison planetside." The neural combat network was humanity's greatest military secret, a quantum entanglement communication system that allowed instantaneous coordination between human forces across vast distances. It had cost more than the GDP of 3 star systems to build, and its existence was known only to the highest levels of human command. One by one, ship captains across the galaxy felt the familiar tingling sensation as their neural implants connected to the network. In seconds, Admiral Vasquez was in direct mental communication with over 200 human warships. New Eden Colony is under attack. Her thoughts echoed in the minds of every connected captain. Zarathi forces are targeting civilians. Children are in danger. Emergency Protocol 7 is in effect. The response was immediate and unanimous. Every human ship capable of combat operations began calculating jump coordinates to Kepler 442c. The merchant marine vessels that couldn't fight started preparing to receive wounded and refugees. Back on New Eden Colony, the Zarathi had finished destroying the orbital defense platforms and were beginning their assault on the surface. Kreshatar watched with satisfaction as his landing craft descended through the atmosphere, carrying 10,000 warriors eager to prove their worth in battle. "Target the military installations first," he ordered. "I want the humans to understand that resistance is futile before we move on to the civilian areas." The first wave of Zarathi troops landed near the Colonial Defense Headquarters, where Captain Webb and his remaining soldiers had prepared their final stand. The humans had set up defensive positions using whatever they could find: overturned vehicles, hastily constructed barriers, even children's playground equipment. "Here they come," Sergeant Major Thompson called out as the first Zarathi warriors emerged from their landing craft. Each alien stood 8 feet tall, their chitinous armor gleaming in the afternoon sun, energy weapons humming with deadly power. The humans opened fire first, their kinetic weapons spitting metal death across the battlefield. Several Zarathi warriors fell, but more kept coming. Their return fire was devastatingly accurate, and Webb watched helplessly as his soldiers began falling around him. "Fall back to secondary positions," he shouted over the chaos. "Make them fight for every inch!" In the school shelter, Sarah Chen could hear the sounds of battle growing closer. Explosions echoed through the reinforced walls, and the lights flickered with each impact. Her students huddled closer together, some crying quietly while others stared at the ceiling with the wide-eyed fear that only children could display. "Miss Chen," Amy Foster whispered, "are the monsters going to hurt us?" Sarah pulled the little girl close, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. These children trusted her to keep them safe, but what could one teacher do against alien invaders? "No, sweetie," she lied softly. "Someone will come to help us. I promise." Above the planet, Warlord Kreshatar received reports from his ground commanders with growing satisfaction. The human military was crumbling faster than expected. Within another hour, they would control all major population centers and could begin the systematic extermination that would serve as a warning to all humanity. He was reviewing casualty reports when his sensor officer suddenly stiffened. "Warlord, detecting massive hyperspace distortions at the edge of the system." Kreshatar's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "Probably human reinforcements. How many ships?" The sensor officer's voice shook with disbelief. "Sir, I'm reading over 200 contacts. and they're all military-grade signatures. The bridge of the Blood Render fell silent. 200 ships was larger than most sector fleets. Where had the humans been hiding such a force? "Impossible!" Kreshatar snarled. "Human intelligence indicated minimal fleet presence in this region. Sir, the contacts are moving at maximum velocity toward our position. Estimated time to intercept, 7 minutes." Kreshatar's tactical mind quickly assessed the situation. 200 ships against his 67 was still manageable, depending on ship classes and armament. The humans had never shown the stomach for a prolonged fight. "Signal all vessels to assume battle formation. We will crush these reinforcements and continue our mission." What Kreshatar didn't understand was that he wasn't facing a normal human fleet. The emergency response fleet was composed of humanity's finest warships, crewed by volunteers who had pledged their lives to protect human civilians. These weren't regular Navy personnel following orders. They were guardians responding to a sacred duty. As the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, their formation was a thing of deadly beauty. At the center, Admiral Vasquez's Retribution led a spearhead of heavy battleships. Surrounding them, destroyers and frigates formed protective screens while specialized assault ships prepared for close-quarters combat. But it was the ships behind them that would have terrified Kreshatar if he had understood their purpose. Medical vessels, transport ships, and mobile hospitals, humanity had come not just to fight, but to save every single civilian on the planet below. "Admiral, we have weapons lock on the Zarathi fleet," Commander Mitchell reported. Vasquez studied the tactical display, her enhanced neural implants calculating firing solutions faster than any computer. Through the neural combat network, she could sense the readiness of every ship in her fleet. 200 ships, their crews united in purpose. "All ships, this is Admiral Vasquez. The enemy has chosen to target human children. They have sealed their fate. Weapons free. Show them why you never threaten humanity's young." The opening salvo from the human fleet lit up space with the fury of a newborn star. Particle beams, plasma cannons, and kinetic projectiles crossed the void at near light speed. The Zarathi return fire was equally devastating, and both fleets began taking casualties immediately. But there was something different about how the humans fought. Their coordination was perfect, as if all 200 ships were controlled by a single mind. Ships would sacrifice themselves without hesitation to protect others, and damaged vessels would ram enemy ships rather than retreat. Warlord Kreshatar watched his tactical display with growing alarm as human ships penetrated his formation with seemingly impossible precision. His heavy cruiser, Bone Crusher, exploded in a ball of plasma as 3 human destroyers concentrated their fire on its reactor core. "How are they coordinating so effectively?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "Unknown, Warlord. Their communication patterns don't match any known human technology." What the Zarathi couldn't detect was the quantum entanglement network that linked every human mind in the fleet. Admiral Vasquez wasn't just commanding her ships, she was thinking with the collective consciousness of 200 vessels and 50,000 crew members. On the planet's surface, Captain Webb heard the rumble of explosions in orbit and allowed himself a moment of hope. Reinforcements had arrived. But the Zarathi ground forces were still advancing on civilian positions, and his remaining soldiers couldn't hold them much longer. "All units fall back to the school district," he ordered. "Protect the children at all costs." As human soldiers retreated through the streets of New Eden Colony, alien warriors pressed their advantage. Zarathi energy weapons left melted craters in building walls, and their heavy weapons began targeting civilian structures. It was then that the first human dropships began falling from the sky like avenging angels. These weren't regular troops. They were the emergency response Marines, soldiers who had trained their entire lives for exactly this scenario. Lieutenant Colonel Alexandra Santos was the first to hit the ground, her powered armor absorbing the impact as she landed directly in the path of the advancing Zarathi. her unit deployed around her with mechanical precision, heavy weapons already spinning up as they acquired targets. "This is Colonel Santos. To all Zarathi forces," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You have exactly 10 seconds to surrender before we demonstrate why attacking human children is considered a terminal mistake." The Zarathi response was predictable. They opened fire with everything they had. Santos smiled grimly inside her helmet as she triggered her armor's combat systems. The emergency response Marines weren't just elite soldiers, they were equipped with humanity's most advanced combat technology. Her first shot vaporized the lead Zarathi warrior. Her second and third shots took out their heavy weapons emplacement. Around her, 50 Marines moved like a coordinated dance of death, their weapons' fire so accurate that each shot found its mark. "Santos to Webb," she called out. "Where are the children? School district. Coordinates transmitting now. But be careful, there are still enemy forces between you and—" "Copy that. We're going through them, not around them." What followed was less a battle than a demonstration. The emergency response Marines moved through the city like a force of nature, their advanced armor shrugging off Zarathi weapons while their return fire decimated the alien forces. These soldiers had spent years training for urban combat scenarios involving civilian protection, and they executed their mission with lethal efficiency. In the school shelter, Sarah Chen heard the sounds of battle change. The alien weapons fire was becoming sporadic, while a different sound, the distinctive whine of human energy weapons, grew stronger. "Miss Chen, what's that noise?" Tommy asked, still holding his crystal flower. Before she could answer, the shelter's blast door was suddenly covered by the shadow of something large. Then came a sound that made her heart leap with hope. Human voices speaking in English. "Civilian shelter located. Beginning extraction." The blast door opened to reveal a figure in gleaming combat armor, their face hidden behind a tactical visor. But the voice that emerged was unmistakably human. "Ma'am, I'm Colonel Santos with the Emergency Response Marines. We're here to get you and the children to safety." Sarah Chen had never seen anything so beautiful in her life. As the children were safely evacuated under Marine protection, the battle in space was reaching its climax. Admiral Vasquez had lost 30 ships, but the Zarathi fleet was being systematically destroyed. Warlord Kreshitar's flagship was crippled, its engines dead and weapons offline. "Warlord, we must retreat," his tactical officer pleaded. "The humans fight like nothing we have ever encountered." Kreshitar stared at the tactical display, watching his proud fleet being torn apart by human fury. He had underestimated them completely. These weren't the soft merchants and explorers his intelligence reports had described. These were warriors defending their young, and they fought with a ferocity that defied reason. "Signal all surviving ships," he commanded with growing dread. "Emergency withdrawal to hyperspace." But Admiral Vasquez had no intention of letting any Zarathi ship escape. Through the neural combat network, she coordinated a final assault that cut off all retreat routes. The surviving alien vessels found themselves surrounded by human ships, their escape vectors blocked. "Unknown Zarathi commander," Vasquez's voice echoed across all communication frequencies. "You chose to threaten human children. There will be no withdrawal. There will be no escape. There will be no survivors to carry word of your defeat back to your masters." Warlord Kreshitar's world ended in fire and light as the UES Retribution fired its main guns directly into his ship's command center. He had just enough time to realize that humanity was far more dangerous than the hegemony had ever imagined. On the planet below, the last Zarathi warriors were being systematically eliminated by the Emergency Response Marines. Those who tried to surrender found no mercy. They had threatened children, and that was an unforgivable sin in human culture. As the sun set over New Eden Colony, Admiral Vasquez stood in the ruins of what had been the governor's office, now serving as a temporary command center. Reports flowed in from across the planet. All Zarathi forces eliminated, all civilians accounted for, all children safe. The quantum beacon that had started it all still sat on the desk, its purpose fulfilled. 50,000 human lives had been saved. But the real message sent this day was far more significant. Humanity had revealed that they possessed both the capability and the will to respond instantly to any threat against their civilians. The emergency response fleet's existence would no longer be secret. Let every hostile species in the galaxy know that human children were protected by forces beyond their imagination. But this was only the beginning. The Zarathi hegemony still existed, and they would undoubtedly respond to this defeat. Admiral Vasquez smiled coldly as she contemplated the future. Humanity was ready for whatever came next. The Reckoning. The Galactic Council Chamber had witnessed many momentous events in its 1,000-year history, but never anything quite like this. Representatives from dozens of species filled the circular amphitheater, their various forms creating a tapestry of galactic civilization. At the center of the chamber, suspended in a stasis field for all to see, hung the severed head of Warlord Kreshitar. Ambassador Elena Reyes stood before the assembly, her human diplomatic uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by the other delegates. In her hands, she held a datapad containing information that would reshape the galactic balance of power forever. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics, "I come before you today not in anger, but in truth. The human species has been forced to reveal capabilities we had hoped to keep hidden, and it is time for the galaxy to understand what we truly are." High Counselor Zephys of the Altarian Federation leaned forward in his crystalline seat. The Altarians were one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, and their word carried tremendous weight in council deliberations. "Ambassador Reyes, the destruction of an entire Zarathi battle fleet is no small matter. The hegemony has lodged formal protests claiming that humanity possesses illegal weapons of mass destruction." Elena's smile was cold as winter stars. "Honored Counselor, I assure you that every weapon used in the defense of New Eden Colony was within established galactic warfare conventions. We simply used them more effectively than our opponents expected." What she didn't mention was how humanity had achieved such devastating effectiveness. The neural combat network remained classified beyond top secret, known only to those who operated it. Let the galaxy wonder how 200 human ships had coordinated with the precision of a single organism. From across the chamber, Ambassador Thrix of the Zarathi hegemony rose to his full, imposing height. His species' natural aggression was barely contained beneath diplomatic protocol. "The humans have committed an act of unprecedented savagery." Thrix's voice boomed through the chamber. "They showed no mercy to our forces, offering no quarter even when surrender was attempted. This is not the behavior of a civilized species." Elena turned to face the Zarathi delegate, her expression showing no trace of sympathy. "Ambassador Thrix, your forces targeted human children. In our culture, such an act transcends all normal rules of warfare. Your warlord chose to cross a line that should never be crossed." "Children are merely small versions of enemy combatants," Thrix replied dismissively. "The hegemony sees no difference between eliminating them now or waiting for them to grow into warriors." The chamber fell silent at this statement. Even among the more aggressive species represented in the council, few would openly admit to targeting juveniles. Elena seized the moment. "And there, honored delegates, you see the fundamental difference between humanity and the Zarathi hegemony. We protect our young above all else. They see children as future enemies to be eliminated." She activated her datapad, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber, showing footage from the Battle of New Eden Colony. The delegates watched in fascination as human ships moved with impossible coordination, their tactical formations shifting like living organisms. What you are witnessing is not superior technology, Elena explained as the battle played out before them. This is the manifestation of human protective instinct. Every ship in that fleet was crewed by volunteers who had pledged their lives to safeguard human civilians. They fought not for territory or resources, but for the children hiding in basement shelters. The footage showed Colonel Santos and her Marines moving through the streets of New Eden Colony with surgical precision. Zarathi warriors who had seemed unstoppable moments before were systematically eliminated by soldiers who fought with the fury of protective parents. Impossible, muttered Delegate Vorth of the Crystalline Consortium. No species fights with such coordination without technological enhancement. Elena nodded solemnly. You are correct, Delegate Vorth. We do possess technological enhancements that allow for unprecedented coordination. But technology alone cannot account for what you witnessed. The true power of humanity lies not in our weapons, but in our willingness to use them without hesitation when our children are threatened. From the viewing gallery reserved for observers, Fleet Admiral Jiang Wei watched the proceedings with satisfaction. He commanded the real human battle fleet, the one that existed openly and operated within galactic norms. The emergency response fleet remained humanity's deepest secret, a hidden ace that had just announced its existence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. The political ramifications were still unfolding. Every major power was now reassessing their intelligence estimates of human military capability. The destruction of Kreshatar's fleet had been so complete, so overwhelming, that even humanity's allies were viewing them with new wariness. Ambassador Thrix attempted to regain control of the narrative. The hegemony demands reparations for the unprovoked destruction of our fleet. Warlord Kreshtar was conducting legitimate military operations to secure hegemony space. Elena's laugh was sharp and humorless. Legitimate military operations? Your forces were recorded targeting civilian shelters. Would you like me to play those recordings for the Council? The Zarathi delegates' mandibles clicked nervously. Those recordings would be damning evidence of war crimes, even by the loose standards of galactic warfare. The hegemony's reputation for brutality was well known, but they had never been caught so blatantly targeting non-combatants. Furthermore, Elena continued, I have been authorized by my government to make the following statement. Any further Zarathi aggression against human civilians will result in the complete extermination of the hegemony as a political entity. We will not issue warnings. We will not engage in prolonged diplomacy. We will simply act. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Such a direct threat between galactic powers was unprecedented in Council history. But Elena wasn't finished. To demonstrate that this is not an empty threat, I am pleased to inform the Council that Hegemony Admiral Corvin and his personal fleet suffered an unfortunate accident while approaching the Tau Ceti system earlier today. She activated her datapad again, showing sensor readings from the Tau Ceti defense grid. The footage revealed Admiral Corvin's 12 heavy cruisers being systematically destroyed by human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. Corvin was investigating reports of illegal human expansion, Thrix protested weakly. Admiral Corvin was leading a punitive expedition against human colonies in retaliation for the defeat at New Eden, Elena corrected coldly. He made the mistake of believing that humanity's protective instincts only extended to children. He was wrong. We protect all of our people, everywhere they may be. High Counselor Zephys called for order as the chamber buzzed with conversation. The implications of what they had just witnessed were staggering. Humanity had just demonstrated the ability to track and intercept military fleets anywhere in the galaxy, suggesting intelligence capabilities far beyond what anyone had suspected. Ambassador Reyes, Zephys said carefully, the Council must ask, exactly how extensive are humanity's military capabilities? Elena smiled, and for a moment every delegate in the chamber felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. Honored Counselor, I am authorized to reveal that the forces you witnessed at New Eden Colony represent approximately 1% of humanity's total military capability. The lie was smoothly delivered and perfectly calculated. In truth, the emergency response fleet was nearly the limit of humanity's current military power. But the galaxy didn't need to know that. Let them believe that humanity had vast hidden fleets waiting in the darkness between stars. 1%? Delegate Vorth's crystalline form actually cracked with stress. That would suggest, Elena said softly, that humanity has been remarkably restrained in our galactic interactions. We could have conquered half the galaxy by now if we had chosen to do so. Instead, we have focused on trade, exploration, and peaceful coexistence. From the Zarathi section came the sound of agitated clicking. Thrix was conferring with his advisors in rapid whispers. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. If the fleet that destroyed Kreshatar was only 1% of human capability, then the hegemony was facing an enemy that could annihilate them without significant effort. But, Elena continued, her voice taking on a harder edge, our restraint has its limits. Touch our children, and you will discover exactly what a fully aroused humanity is capable of. The display screens around the chamber shifted to show the head of Warlord Kreshatar, still suspended in its stasis field. The preservation technology kept the severed head in perfect condition, a permanent reminder of the price of threatening human civilians. This trophy will be returned to the hegemony as a gesture of diplomatic courtesy, Elena announced. We suggest you display it prominently in your halls of power so that future warlords might remember the fate of those who harm human children. High Counselor Zephys processed this information with the calculating mind that had made him one of the galaxy's most respected diplomats. Humanity had just revealed themselves to be far more dangerous than anyone had suspected, while simultaneously offering the galaxy a choice: peaceful coexistence or total war. The Council recognizes humanity's right to defend its civilians, Zephys declared formally. We also note the restraint that human forces have shown in limiting their response to military targets only. It was a carefully worded acknowledgement that humanity could have done far worse. They could have bombarded Zarathi worlds from orbit, could have turned the hegemony's industrial centers into radioactive wastelands. Instead, they had limited their retaliation to military forces. Elena nodded graciously. Humanity seeks only to live in peace with our galactic neighbors. We ask for no special privileges, no territorial concessions. We simply require that our civilians, especially our children, be left unmolested. Ambassador Thrix struggled to find a response that wouldn't make the Zarathi appear weak while also avoiding further escalation. The truth was that the hegemony was terrified. Their entire military doctrine was built around intimidation and overwhelming force, but humanity had just demonstrated that they possessed both qualities in far greater measure. The hegemony acknowledges the human response to our military action, Thrix said slowly. We propose a formal ceasefire while our respective governments negotiate new territorial boundaries. Elena's smile was predatory. There will be no new territorial negotiations, Ambassador. Humanity will expand wherever we choose to establish colonies. If the hegemony wishes to avoid future conflicts, I suggest they simply avoid attacking our civilian populations. The message was clear. Humanity was not asking for permission to expand. They were informing the galaxy that they would continue their growth regardless of what other powers might think. The only choice was whether that expansion would occur peacefully or over the smoking ruins of whoever tried to stop them. As the formal session concluded and delegates began filing out of the chamber, Elena remained behind to complete one final piece of business. She approached the stasis field containing Kreshatar's head and activated a recording device. Warlord Kreshatar, You probably never imagined that your final resting place would be the Galactic Council chamber, but your legacy will serve a valuable purpose. Every time a military commander considers attacking human civilians, they will remember your fate. She paused the recording and looked directly into the dead warlord's yellow eyes. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. We tried to warn you. We offered you surrender. We gave you every opportunity to withdraw with honor. But you chose to target children, and that choice sealed not only your fate, but the fate of your entire fleet. The recording would be distributed throughout human space as both a warning to enemies and a promise to allies. Humanity would tolerate many things, but harm to their young was not among them. Later, in her private quarters aboard the human embassy ship, Elena composed her final report to Earth Command. The mission had been an unqualified success. The galaxy now understood that humanity possessed both the capability and the will to defend their civilians against any threat. More importantly, the existence of the emergency response fleet was no longer a secret. Every major power would now be forced to factor human rapid response capability into their strategic planning. The age of treating humanity as a minor player in galactic politics was officially over. As she sealed the report with her diplomatic cipher, Elena allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Tommy Rodriguez and his classmates were safe in their rebuilt school, playing with crystal flowers under the protection of the most feared military force in the galaxy. Sarah Chen had returned to teaching, secure in the knowledge that her students would never again face such danger. The price of that security had been paid in full by Warlord Kreshitar and his fleet. His head would serve as a permanent reminder to any who might consider threatening human children. Humanity's protective instincts knew no bounds, and their response to such threats was swift, decisive, and absolute. In the end, that was the true message of the Battle of New Eden Colony. Not that humanity was technologically superior or strategically brilliant, but that they would sacrifice everything to protect their young. And in a galaxy full of predators, that made them the most dangerous species of all. The Zarathi hegemony learned this lesson 10 minutes too late. The galaxy would remember it for 1,000 years.